Hey folks, and welcome into the Truck King YouTube channel. Today we have something a little bit different. This is the Ford E-Transit, the all-electric version of Ford's cargo van. Now, regardless of how you personally feel about EVs, an electric work vehicle like this can save you money, and I want to talk about it. So in this video, let's go for a drive. We'll talk range, we'll talk charging, we'll talk interior space, and then most importantly, talk about the ways an EV could benefit your business. So make sure you stay tuned. Let's start by looking at the powertrain on this E-Transit. So this thing makes 266 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque from its electric motor, and it uses an 89 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And for 2025, that is the only battery you can now get in the E-Transit, as the smaller 68 kilowatt pack has been canceled. That means that the standard range now on this van is 159 miles, which is 255 kilometers. Now that battery is sandwiched down there in the floor, and the electric motor is actually back there between the rear wheels. Now it's not a solid axle, it's actually independent rear suspension. It's a swing arm suspension that Ford designed specifically for this vehicle. Now up front here, yes, the hood still opens like a regular Transit, and you can access a bunch of your HVAC, your ECUs, brakes, steering, a lot of the different components on this vehicle. So nice to see you still have access to get in there and work on it. They didn't put a frunk in here to add more storage. They figured, you know what, don't add the cost and complexity, allow people to actually work on their vehicle. So I like that. Now this one you're looking at here is the low roof and the 148-inch wheelbase version, but there are different configurations you can get with the E-Transit. And you know what, right now let's go look at arguably the most important number with any van, and that is the payload. So over here on the door jamb sticker, we're talking about 3,011 pounds of payload, which is a solid number for this van. And it's one thing that Ford really proudly touts, is that even though this is electric, it still has payload numbers that are comparable to the gas versions, and the space inside doesn't change compared to the gas versions. And you know what, why don't we climb in right now and take a look. Let's take a look at the business end of this thing now. So you got the big barn doors on the back, and they do have one trick. That's as wide as they initially open, and then there's this little unlock mechanism right here. You unlock it, and you can actually swing it all the way around. And what's really cool is that's actually magnetized, so that's stuck on there. Especially for a windy day, you don't want that door to come back and whack you. Well, that magnet's gonna hold it in place. And then yes, you get access to all of this space back here. This van, as we have it today, clearly has no work done to it. So this is a clean sheet right here that you're looking at. This is what you would take to the upfitter and say, hey, I want you to install shelves for my business or whatever else you might need. And that's why you get all the holes and also all the exposed wiring, so they can sort of work around and use all those mounting points. Now, one other feature I got to show you, 2.4 kilowatts of power available right there from 2 plugs. So nice to have some real legitimate power. And then, hey, I'll go show you the sliding door too around the side. So if you're just doing quick deliveries, yeah, you can just come in the side door. And I'll also show you, this is the low roof version, which does mean that I stand at 6'2". I can't come close to standing up in here. So a little bit annoying to get in here and move stuff around, but that totally depends on what you're hauling and what your usage case is and how tall you are. But there you go. Loads of space back here in the Transit. And like I said, this is a nice blank canvas. You can set it up however you want and deliver all sorts of stuff. And now, folks, here we are driving the E-Transit. It is fully empty back there, which feels funny. I feel like I need to be out here delivering something. But anyways, let's talk about how it drives going down the road. And the first thing you notice, and this is very typical of these large vans, is just the seating position is very tall. You get this elevated kind of look around the vehicle, which is good. The nose falls off pretty steeply and aggressively, so I feel like I have a really good sense for where my nose is, and what that all equals is maneuverability. I do feel like, even though we got the long wheelbase, this van doesn't love going around the corners. I feel like I know exactly where the van is around me, which is incredibly important with a vehicle like this. Now, also talking on visibility, the mirrors are quite good. That's a very large mirror up top, and then you need the spot mirror down below. So I like that. And then, yeah, continuing on there, the cameras here too. We have the full suite of cameras, so when you're backing up, it's incredibly helpful to have the cameras in a vehicle like this, and they work really well. So the first thing I'm just feeling is, yeah, the visibility here is quite good, and I feel confident getting behind the wheel of this thing. All right, folks, we're taking off from a stoplight. Let's feel the power. And it's really not bad. I mean, 266 horsepower on paper for a vehicle this big, yeah, that sounds decent. But like usual, like any electric vehicle out there, you're getting that hit of torque instantly. So this thing really does move off the line quite good. And I know I said this, there's no load in here right now, but I would feel totally confident that if you added, 3,000 pounds back there, you're still gonna feel that power and especially that low end torque. And that's just one of the advantages of an EV for doing hard work, is the powertrain just doesn't feel like it struggles as much as a traditional ICE powertrain to get a load up and moving. So yeah, I really do like the way that power feels when you put your foot into it. And we do have a couple of drive modes here as well. So we get a normal, an eco, and then a slippery mode. So nice to have a couple different modes. The one thing I'm disappointed to not see, though, is anything to do with the regenerative braking or even a one-pedal drive system. Of course, that's available on the Lightning, but it's not here in the E-Transit. And you know what? I think that having a choice is always the best for consumers. Say you live somewhere in the mountains and you're, coming down a grade for a long period of time, you probably want max regen to make sure, yeah, you're scrubbing back as much power as possible, or maybe you just don't like the way the feature feels, well then you can shut it off. Here in the E-Transit, I'm doing about 80 kilometers an hour. I'm just gonna lift off. And I can feel the regen. It's definitely there. You get that instant back pressure, but it's not that aggressive, not nearly as aggressive as a lot of other systems out there. So nice to have it, but unfortunate that there is no way to control it or even to have something like a one-pedal drive. The other thing definitely worth mentioning here is the functionality of this interior. I mean, this is a work van. It doesn't matter how it looks, it matters how it actually works. And what I really like is all the little cubbies and nooks and crannies to store stuff. You can see, like, I just tossed my gloves up there. Nice to have that. There's also 12-volt power and a USB-C port up there on the dash. So if you have something that needs to be charged up there, you can be doing it. I got cup holders on both sides. I got a bin down here by my left knee, which is nice. So yeah, it feels like there's a lot of little storage pockets, which, like I said, is important. And one other thing that's neat is right over here in front of this cup holder, that cutout right there, Ford actually allows people or encourages people to 3D print their own designs, and then they can slot them down into there. They did the same thing in the Maverick. So I don't know, let's say you want to custom print a cell phone holder, a business card holder, something very specific to your business. You can go out, 3D print it, and Ford gives you that slot. So yeah, I'd like to see those little nods to just ingenuity, smart thinking, and that all feels like it's here too. Not to mention the fact that we get the big touchscreen in the center, a really nice looking touchscreen, all of Ford's latest infotainment, so nice to have that. But then on the flip side of that, physical gauges over here in front of me, including a little, in my head I call it a gas gauge, but here it's a, power gauge. But it's funny just to have the little physical gauge. Most EVs just tell you a percentage, whereas here, yeah, it's actually showing you I got about 3/4 of a battery left. So yeah, old school gauges, that's totally fine in a vehicle like this because it's mixed with all this technology over here. So now I've talked about how it drives, but how far can it actually drive in the real world? Well, we're gonna do a range test now over about 100 kilometers to see what that real world number is. And it's cold now, around -9 degrees Celsius. So this is a good cold weather range test. And you know what? I'm also curious as to what my dad thinks about EV vans. So let's get him to chime in here too.
You know, if you react to the word EV the way that I react to poison ivy, the simple fact is that you want nothing to do with them. However, I'm here to say that when it comes to the commercial market, delivery vans, service vans, whether it's the post office or your local plumbing guy, this is the best deal on 4 wheels. And I'll tell you why. Simple. Electric van, cheaper to run than gas, longer service life. Most gasoline-powered vehicles are figured at 5 to 7 years is what you're going to get out of it before you need to go buy a new one. You get at least 10 years out of this. Simply fewer parts, lower maintenance, overnight charging, and listen, this will give you 200 kilometers of range, and that is more than enough for most guys with service vehicles. We're not talking about long distance vehicles. These are urban service vehicles. And so what's not to like? No idling, no pollution. So we'll even do some numbers for you, because what convinces me is always my pocketbook. I'm not EV crazy. I'm money crazy. I want the lowest possible dollars to the mile or kilometer that I can get in a vehicle, and that's what you're going to get here in this e-Transit. So again, let's do a little math for you, and you can see roughly what your maintenance and daily expenses are on this.
I'm back in the office here now, and I want to do this math for you, but I actually decided that a better way to go about it was just to look for real world examples online of companies that have already made this switch and are benefiting from it. So actually, the first thing I want to show you is this website, which was put here by Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro and Newfoundland Power, and it's essentially a fleet fuel savings calculator, and it will compare EVs with gas vehicles. So I put in here a fleet of 20 vehicles doing 110 kilometers per day. You can see I'm comparing with a diesel cargo van, which is getting 9.53 kilometers per liter. And then I compared that to a 2024 Ford e-Transit low roof. And you can see just in fuel savings, it's absolutely massive. The gas fleet is going to cost you over $100,000 a year. The electric fleet is just over $30,000 a year. And of course, that is all Canadian, but still, that's massive savings. And that's just on fuel. That doesn't talk about maintenance. So I just think the overall cost savings are obvious switching to EVs. Now, I will flip on you and go the other way. I also understand that the initial cost of purchasing the fleet is going to be more. Electric vehicles simply still cost more than their gasoline counterparts, and that's the same for the Ford Transit and e-Transit. And there's also a large initial cost on installing the infrastructure, the charging that you're going to need at your depot or home base to support that. So yes, the cost of entry is still higher, but over the long haul, you're still going to be saving money. It just has to be realized over a longer period of time. So there you have some actual numbers on what you might save, but now I want to look at real world examples, and I think we only have to go to one place, Amazon. This has to be one of, if not the largest fleet of delivery vans anywhere in the world, and Amazon is actively converting to EVs. They say that right now there's already 20,000 electric delivery vans rolled out across the United States, and they say that by 2030 they want to have 100,000 electric delivery vehicles. Now, of course, a lot of what Amazon says is they're doing it for the environmental benefit, and I don't doubt some of that, but we can be honest, they're a company. It's all about dollars and cents. If this move didn't make sense to Amazon, Amazon and wasn't going to save them money, they wouldn't be doing it. But obviously, they've looked into it and decided, let's convert the fleet because this is going to be a massive savings and an environmental benefit. Now, I totally understand the environmental benefit thing isn't really clear cut. In some cases, EVs can actually be dirtier than gasoline cars depending on where the energy comes from. But overall, in general, EVs still have a smaller environmental footprint than a gasoline powered car. So that seems like a side note almost, though. It's nice to get the environmental benefit, but honestly, again, it's still dollars and cents. And if Amazon didn't do the math and it didn't make sense, they wouldn't be doing it. But the fact is they are. So that's the only example I think I have to throw out there just to prove that obviously going electric with your delivery fleet is going to save you some money. Okay, folks, range test begins now. So you can see we will zero out our trip. And we're currently sitting at 114 kilometers of range. And where we're going is 95 kilometers away. So we're cutting it pretty close. And right now, the temperature readout says -5 degrees Celsius. So we'll see in -5 how accurate that range readout is, because like I just said, we're cutting it pretty close on this one. Hopefully I make it. Stay tuned for the result. And we're just pulling in. You can take a look at our efficiency numbers. We managed 33 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And you can see there we did 107 kilometers and it says we have 40 left. So that means the range was actually under promising and it over delivered, because when we left it was less than 120, but if you add those two up, that means there's 147 kilometers in there. So that's actually nice. And as you can see, it got colder. It's -8 degrees Celsius now. So that's actually not half bad from this Ford. Well, folks, we have come to the end of this one. Now, I think the summary here is simple. If you run a business and this electric Transit is going to save you money, it is therefore a good product. Plus, I really believe that local city delivery and EVs make total sense together. So yeah, that's it for this one. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop it in the comments. Let me know about everything you saw in this video. While you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member. And then come right back here to Truck King to see what we're testing next. See ya!